Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu to some of you and peace to the rest of you. This is Black Heart, signing black in again. Um, the reason that I've been recording what I've been recording and saying what I've been saying about black men and black women, but I've been calling on black women to be the ones to make the change, is not because of hatred and it's not because of chauvinism. You see, when you go into any place of business to sort out an issue, to sort out a mistake, you talk to the one that has the authority to make that change. You talk to the one that is in power. You talk to different ones according to different powers and authorities that they have. And with each one comes responsibility as well. This is the norm in every case. And so when I call on sisters to be the ones to make certain changes, when I call on sisters to be the ones to, in a sense, either change what they're looking for in men or expect the consequences, and in either case, be honest about what they're looking for in men, it is because they have the power to change that. I'm not sitting up here saying things that I've been saying because I just hate them. And I realize that it's easy for some women to make that assumption, but I'm going to be honest. I've heard that women are children. I've heard that women are like children. I myself don't believe that they have to be that way. I've heard guys say that it's in their nature to be irresponsible and to not take accountability, but while still making bad decisions. I believe that women can be wise, that they can be adult-like. I believe that they can grow into adulthood mentally speaking at the same time that they do physically, like any man has to do. I believe that they can mature mentally. I believe that they can make wise decisions and that they can take accountability, just like they can take the rewards for the good decisions they make. They can take accountability when they make the wrong ones. I believe that they can do this before, not only after, but before they lose their looks and lose their charm. I believe that they can do this without having to have Junebug's baby, Nuck Nuck's baby. I believe they can do this, they're capable of doing it, even when they're at their best, as far as the options in men go. I believe that a 22-year-old, 25-year-old, who has all the options in men she's ever going to have in life, can grow into maturity and wisdom, unlike many others. I believe that oftentimes they simply don't do it. And that's because, frankly, we men allow it. Now, a lot of ladies have listened, and they've listened for a few minutes and then they turn everything off and they say, ugh, and some come in and comment, oh, you're so wrong. One lady said, consult a shrink, and she didn't type a single lowercase letter. I had to tell her, look, consult a keyboard without the caps lock. It's getting ridiculous after a while. So, unfortunately, I'm really not sure what the reason is for a lot, but for whatever reason, a lot of them simply cannot, or they simply will not grow up, but I believe that they can. I'm sure they can. And when I sit up and I say this to some of them, in person, in a one-on-one conversation, I usually don't even get to finish a single sentence. But unlike a real chauvinist, I believe they can do better. It's just a question of whether or not you're going to. I don't believe that you have some kind of mental impairment. It's certainly not one that forces you to act like a child after you have reached maturity, physical maturity, that is. Because see, that would mean that every man who's going to ever have a family has to become a child molester. That's what that would mean, and I'm not into that. You see, men are not, legally speaking, men are not allowed to take advantage of kids, and men should not be. No one should be doing this, man or woman. You see, legally speaking, in many societies, men are not allowed to take advantage of mentally impaired women that are adults. It's not approved, and nobody should be. But when I hear women try to duck the responsibility, when I hear them try to cut me off before I try to say what I'm sure that they can do, and they stop me, then I know I'm dealing with a child. And that means that the options for many men out there are limited to mental children. And that's a sick concept, and that's a sick thought to live with for anybody. Best believe I'm grossed out by it. Some people have asked, why have I stayed single for so long and most of my life? Well, it's very simple. That's what I came to the realization of years ago, and that's enough to turn off anybody. If you ain't into children, you can be single for a long stretch of time when you're surrounded by kids. That's the reason for it. But I'm not going to sit up and say only that the women have to do X, Y, and Z. I've said that in other videos. Some women want to tell me that men have to take responsibility, and I've never doubted that. It's just a question of, what do we have the power to change that we haven't changed? Would the women have the power to change that they haven't changed? So I'm going to say this. Men, we've allowed this. If women want to hear me jump on the men, the one thing for which I can get on our case is that we've made these things too damn easy on these women. Entirely too easy. Especially with Western men. We have allowed women to be lazy because they're cute. We've allowed them to be immature because they're cute. We've allowed them to be dishonest because they're cute. We've allowed them to be insane because they're cute. Truth be told, Alyssa Milano's been calling for a sex strike. She's not calling on men to do that. She's calling on women to do it with a herpes infected self. But see, if we men had known years ago that we could do the strike, which now the news is coming out that many men already are doing by default anyway, then we could have been the ones to change the narrative. We could have been the ones to say, no children, not even mentally speaking. No liars, not once we can detect them. None of this childish stuff. If you can't act like an adult, you're not supposed to be engaging in adult business. And you're not supposed to be experiencing adult pleasures. And a lot of men have simply just not been willing to do so. Especially the men for whom the women don't act like this. And I would say this, of course, there are many men for whom women don't behave this way, so they may really not know that this is what these women are doing. And I'm not knocking men who really don't know what women are doing. I don't hate, the select guys because they really don't know how other men are being treated by the very same women that are treating them so well. I realize Alan Roger Curry does not, he would not normally know how other guys get treated. He would have to sit down and listen, and he would have to hear it confirmed by multiple sources. Otherwise, it would sound made up to him, just like the kind of experiences he has would sound made up to many of us. But on the end, when everything is over, how many select guys are there? They're actually very few. Studies have shown that women count up to 80 to 8, anywhere between 80 to 86% of men as being below average and unattractive. That's how they view it. So that means that select men are probably less than 14%, because you got to think, well, what do they consider normal and average? So you're talking less than 14%. So what this means is that they do have more opportunity to know what non-select men go through than we have to know what they go through, because there are more of us to tell them. But we haven't sat up and discussed it and compared notes. That's not their fault. It's not really ours. Then again, no, maybe it is. But at the end of the day, the women have behaved the way that they behaved because we have allowed it. We've let them do it. Select and non-select men alike have allowed them to do this. We have not raised standards for them of maturity. Now, can you look like you could make a killing in the porn industry if you wanted to, but still behave like you have some sense? Still behave like, at least behave like you like the guy you really like. At least behave like your type is actually your type. Because quiet as is kept, a lot of these women actually don't have, a lot of them don't have the standards they have for themselves. They have it for their friends. There are two kinds of standards that women have, and one of them is the one that they've got for the friend. The other one is what they got for themselves. But could you get someone that has options in men to get rid of the standards that she has, not for herself but for her friends? No, in most cases you can't. Can you get them to admit that they think with a hive mind? In many cases, no. In many cases you can't. And this is because we men have not demanded it. So again, as I've said before, I don't hate women, and I don't look down on them by default. I don't look down on women because they're women. I believe that they're capable of acting like adults, like any man is. This is why it is that I say for them to make certain changes I ask them to make, and to do certain things I'm telling them to do. But since many want to hear me get on men to prove that I'm fair, okay, well, let me get on men for that which we have done wrong. Make these things too easy. So men, raise the standards of maturity and honesty. For real. Scrutinize the ways that you were scrutinized when you were young. Take those things and learn to scrutinize them for the same thing. If you came up and you could be scrutinized for wearing the wrong color shirt one day, fine. You turn around and scrutinize them that way. That's what you got to do. Make this understood that the scrutiny is going to be equal. Because right now we're looking at a lot of these women and we're realizing that many of them are, at least half of them can be attractive. So let's start using something else to eliminate the numbers. And that could be maturity. Because they're judging us by what we don't have. The primary thing by which they're judging us are pre-selection by other women and money. And these things are very fleeting. And I would say, okay, let's judge them by maturity. That still would be easier for them. But you would see that emotionally speaking, it will be hard for a lot of them because they've been allowed to get away with it for so long. But what would happen is that the women who are able to have daughters or sons and raise daughters and teach daughters anything, you would see what they would tell their daughters. I got your dad because in addition to him liking what he saw, I had to behave like a grown woman. I scrutinized him, he had to meet standards, but hey, you know what? I did too, and that's fair. That's one of the best things by which to scrutinize them. What will she tell her daughter? She gonna teach her daughter game, so I gotta teach my son game? Or is she gonna teach her daughter maturity so that I can tell my son, okay, look, you behave with maturity. Do your best, look your best, and behave your best. Again, the power goes back to the women, and this is why I've had to record what I've had to record. So I hope that this is a benefit. Thanks for being patient. Salam alaikum. Black Heart, sign of black.